Welcome to this podcast, the Veblen Director Program. I am thrilled to be interviewing Dr. Keith Cantor and really excited to hear some of his experiences because I've kind of been following him very closely since he joined the program. And he's been very kind in sharing a lot on LinkedIn about his experience, but I thought it'd be great to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Keith, to start with, do you want to just give us a quick overview of you, where you're based, what your background is? Start there.
Sure. Well, I live in the Atlanta area, north of Atlanta, small town called Swanee, about 40 minutes from Atlanta itself. I'm originally from New York, as you might be able to tell from my accent. I'm from the Bronx, so my wife's from Brooklyn. Uh, and I spent 40 years counting reserve time in the Marines. And that's a great training program, believe it or not. As an officer, because I went in after college, you're in charge of men after a short period of time, or people, a big budget, etc. So I loved it, except for getting shot at. Uh, it was great. And I have had several businesses that turned out to be quite successful, mostly in the food industry. And then after I retired, I used my PhD in nutritional science and set up a company called NAMED, which stands for Nutritional Addiction Mitigation, Eating and Drinking. And eventually that became popular with the rehabilitation centers and the VA. And then I was thinking of retiring, but I get bored too easy. And I'm not wealthy enough where I could just jet around all the time and live like, the rich and famous that you see on TV. So if you're not that wealthy, then it's boring to just, live regular without working. So I found Veblen, and it was great. It still is great. I enjoy it. I got involved in things that I've never been involved in. Uh, I'm on one board out of Switzerland. I'm on one board out of India, and on one board locally here in Atlanta. And I'm really enjoying it and learning. And I feel like, just like my LinkedIn says, I bring value. And that's what I feel like my job is to bring value to the companies. And, that's what you teach in Veblen anyhow, is your real job as a board member is to raise the value of the stock.
Mm. So what
And
was you've had a very successful career. You mentioned the leadership lessons and things that you've learned from the Marines. I guess the difference is often Marines have to do what you tell them, and then you become an entrepreneur, and employees aren't always as easy. What are some of the leadership lessons that you learned that hopefully now you kind of you're able to apply once you join boards?
well, it's a lot. You go through what they call OCS, which is Officer Candidate School, which is 12 weeks. Then you have a 6-month like leadership college called the basic school. And then you go to schools after that. Like I went to their military form of college of warfare and strategy and stuff. So you learn a lot. Now, one thing is Marines do listen to you. We're an officer, so we basically get listened to instead of having to listen quite as much because there's a lot less officers. But I learned a lot of things there, like if your men, and now it's men and women, respect you, they'll do anything for you. If they feel like you respect them, you'll get it back tenfold. And loyalty was always a big part of the Marines. It's a big part of the way I grew up. and it was a big part of every company I ever started or owned, because it's a two-way street. So I learned you have to lead from the front, and you have to be willing to get your hands dirty. I know some business owners that I call them pointers, and
Yeah.
that's great. But if you want the respect of your men and you say, come on, we have to unload this truck, you grab a couple boxes. Then you can go do something else. But at least you started with them. And that's what a lot of people aren't willing to do. And I took that into my companies. And I would say the biggest attribute I had that made me successful was probably also my biggest fault, but was loyalty.
Hmm.
And when I say biggest fault is because sometimes if somebody's been with me for a long time and now they're not doing their job as well
Yeah.
as they should, etc., I don't want to get rid of them because they were with me from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not a owner mindset, really. That's a worker employer mindset. And I had to change that when I went on to the boards, because you have to think as a stakeholder
Exactly.
versus an owner, and that was different for me.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that difference between client value and shareholder value a little bit later on. But so you mentioned that one of the reasons you started looking at a program like Veblen was that you had commercial reasons. You wanted to be earning some more money in your retirement. Um, but it also, from what I've heard you speak about in the past, you're also keen to share a lot of what you've learned. I mean, you've had an incredible career. So can you tell me, like, what were you thinking, and what was the sort of the drive, the main driver to make the decision to come on?
Well, you reach a certain point in your life. I'm no spring chicken anymore. Uh, I'm 69 years old, and money isn't a big issue anymore. I'm fairly successful. To most people, they would say I was very successful. Uh, so I wanted to share that. I enjoy mentoring. That's what I loved about the Marines, was that I was mentoring, you know, the soldiers to be better at whatever they did. But I also try to do it personally. And, so I started doing some stuff with some charities. But what I figured out after a while, the best way to help the most people is by helping a business become successful. And, if you think of it, it may be controversial, but show me something that has helped more people than a company like Google or Microsoft or Amazon, even if
Mm.
for some reason you don't like the owner or the company, but they
Yeah.
helped hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people.
Yeah, no, look, I totally agree. And it, interestingly, the US used to be one of the biggest cheerleaders for entrepreneurship and building businesses, and it kind of seems to have gone the other way. And during COVID, Amazon hired 400,000 Americans during COVID, uh, and just got criticized over and over again for working conditions and other things. I was like, hang on, look, 400,000 people that didn't have jobs queued up to get those jobs, and you created those jobs and solved problems for clients. And it seems to have gone out of the way. So I totally agree. If businesses work when they solve problems for clients. That's fundamentally it. Um, so when so you said you've done a little bit of work with charities. What were some of the things when you joined Veblen? Because you very much threw yourself into it as soon as you joined. So what were some of the first things that you learned, or the first experience with the program, and what kind of stood out in the early days?
I learned first that a board member was different than what I thought.
Right.
And I think most people, if you take a survey and you ask them what a board member is, they'll say an advisor.
Right.
You know, I have a lot of marketing experience, so I can help them with marketing. Okay, that's not what you do.
Yeah.
Now, it's a double-edged sword with Veblen since a lot of them are startups. So you end up being an advisor at the beginning on the board. But if anything's a little bit established and stuff, that's not what they want. They just want you to bring value, raise the stakeholder value, you know, from a 20,000-foot view. Most of them don't need the hands-on, oh, in marketing, if you do this with, you know, they'll hire somebody for that.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference for a lot of people. I'm used to being more hands-on. And even though my companies were fairly big, 30 million, you know, not huge, but I had like 200 or so employees and stuff. But the hardest thing for me was to learn to work on the business instead of in the business. And
Yeah.
that's really what I have to learn as a board member, to work
Yeah. And
on
I
the.
think entrepreneurs are often the worst at this because we're so used to just wanting to go in and fix things, because that's how we became successful in the first place. So so this is a good time to talk about that distinction, excuse me, between client value and shareholder value. And I know it took me a long time as an entrepreneur to understand that distinction. When you're working in the business, you're constantly thinking about client value. You're constantly thinking, how do we solve more problems? How do we reach more clients? So tell me kind of how you've gone through that process and how you now manage that distinction, thinking around shareholder value.
Well, now I think it's basically as an investor, which is shareholder value, really.
Yeah,
And I always thought as an owner, which is different than an investor, people, even though an owner invested, it's still a different mindset. So, and where I noticed the biggest difference is in the loyalty you have as an owner, worker, employee, you have a lot of loyalty to the people that started with you, that helped you, but then they get lazy or they're not good in that job anymore. And we don't change it out. And as a stakeholder or an investor or a board member for that member, although we don't go down to that level, you have to replace them because your loyalty is costing the stakeholder money.
yeah,
And so you have to put on your stakeholder hat as a board member right away, because to build a company is different.
yeah, yeah.
Loyalty, super important to build a company. But
Sure. So
grow it,
So,
you
so
have.
when you joined, that was sort of one of the first distinctions that stood out to you. What are some of the other things that stood out or have helped you on your journey? And perhaps maybe just share what you've done since you joined, because you've only been in the program like 4 or 5 months or something, haven't you?
July 5th, I think I
Right.
checked, lack of a
Right. So
better.
so what's happened to you since then? And then we can get into
Well, I had a good ride. I got my first board seat within a few weeks, maybe a month. I don't remember exactly, but it was with Alpha Flow Zenith
Mhm.
and great individuals. Name's Nam, and he wanted to start a beverage company. And he saw that I had my degree in nutritional science, so he asked me to be on his board. Well, then I was able to, when I figured out what he was doing, and he was really starting from scratch.
Yeah.
I was able to connect him up with a friend of mine that's been in the business for years and years that I was partners with in the late 70s. giving away a
Right.
little bit of news and stuff. He was a genius with the formulas and formulating the products. So I said I should put you guys together. So I put them together, and Nam, the stakeholder from the first company, calls me back and goes, "This guy's a genius. Forget everything that I told you. I'm just going to sell his products in Europe and South America at the beginning because they're perfect." Because he
Right.
just developed them, they didn't even go on the market yet. He goes, and then use the profit from that to launch our own products. Now he's doing it more simultaneously, but he asked me, he goes, "I like what you're doing. I like your connections. I like your network. And so what do I have to do to get you more excited or to really have you involved?" I said,
Question.
um, I said, I don't do advisory boards. I just said it like that. This is my first board, you have to realize. Except for boards that I basically owned before
Yeah,
that.
of course.
Uh, and I said, and I want to become wealthy from helping you. I want to make you wealthy, but for that, I don't want accolades. I want you to make me and the other board members wealthy. So he goes, "Okay, so you want a paid position?" I said, "Yeah, I don't just want a paid position. I want stock option. But when we do real stuff,
Yeah.
not just because we're good
Big,
looking."
big distinction. I'm going to help you. I'm going to create value for you. And once we hit these targets, then I'm going to get rewarded for it. Very, very different from kind of the typical, yeah, yeah, give me a fat salary and then we'll see what I can do. Very
So
different
I
mindset.
that for him, and he's just thrilled. And it's funny because he has a good history too, but he's was actually part of the boat people, if you remember what that was, from Vietnam, and
Mm.
ended up in Switzerland. And he's about your age. Well, I'm guessing he's like 50, but he's with a company called Glencore. If you ever
Mhm.
heard of them, but
Yep.
do you remember Mark Rich from the United States? He got the pardon from Clinton for tax
Yeah.
evasion.
Yeah. Yeah. Not rich to,
And he's the one who started Glencore. It was called Rich Industries,
gosh.
which is all up.
His book is great, by the way, Mark Rich's book.
And he came back to the United States. Well, this guy happened to be in the right place at the right time. Started, I think he said, when he was 28 with them as an auditor. When it was 38, it went public as Glencore. It's a mining company. And they got dollars. Just boom. And he said,
Nice.
and he never stopped working. I said, "Didn't you take a year or two off?" And he said, "No, I did take 2 weeks off, and I just thought it was funny." So he's a great person. Anybody who gets money
Yeah.
like that and just keeps
So,
working.
and look, what's interesting was that Nam had no intention of starting a business until he joined Veblen, and then he just met so many cool people. He got inspired to do that, which is incredible. So that was your first board seat within like a few weeks of joining the program. So what happened next?
Okay, then I kept going through my modules and doing what I was supposed to. I started doing stuff on LinkedIn, but the next big thing I did was I got up to the module that you are what Google says you are,
Mhm.
and then I didn't feel like I could do it myself, so I paid somebody to redo my LinkedIn and
Mhm.
my CV. And the reason they do the CV is LinkedIn, people don't know this. Now I know because I just paid for it, but they take your CV to do your LinkedIn.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
they do. So if you don't have a CV, it's real hard for them to do. That's why they do both of them. Anyhow, I did that, and it was like turning on a switch. It was unbelievable. I don't even know the number now. I stopped counting when it was at 38, but I've gotten easy. 60, 70 invites to join, to apply to join boards. And I was actually invited for a public board. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
And I,
So don't mention the company name, but we can. So it was an S&P 500 company that reached out to you.
yes, but after I did the interview process and they offered me the seat and the pay was good, it was $166,000.
Hmm.
Uh, but to me, a board is 20 to 30 hours a month, plus, because of my personality, an extra 10 plus hours, because that's just the way I am. And they told me during the interview that this was 30 to 40 plus hours per week.
That's basically a job, isn't it?
And I said, so this is really a job that you're calling a board position? No, 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 no. I said, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's what it really was. Even though they called it a board position, it was basically a customer service advisory board.
Mhm.
So it was a real board, but they didn't treat the board like a board. They were, and when you're a Fortune 500 or SP 500 company, you can do whatever you want. So all of a sudden, $166,000 didn't seem like a good idea. It would have taken away from the other boards that I was on,
Yeah.
and from the idea of being somewhat retired. Because I'm a hard worker. I'll put in as much hours as the company needs. But if
Mm.
they need 20 to 30 hours a month, like a typical board, I'll put in 30 to 40 to 50 hours a month. That's my nature. But if they're telling me up front that I'm going to need 40 hours a week, that's a
That's different. So look, you've been in the program a few months. You've joined a couple of boards already. You've turned down 160 grand to join an S&P 500 board. Um, what are some of the other? I mean, you've mentioned some of the people that you've met already through the program. But what are some of the other things that have stood out? So profile, which is one of our key pieces you've touched on. So what else has stood out?
uh, well, I think networking is extremely important. And I think a lot of people, I don't know if they're shy or what, but so I reach out to people like I did with Ralph right away. I saw that he lived in Georgia. That's about as, and I saw him on a video. That's where I found out he lived in Georgia. So I
Yeah.
reached out to him. Uh, I reached out to Dr. Veronica Anderson because I was offered a board position, paid board position, but it was a new company and it was out of India. And I remembered from talking to Dr. Anderson that she did like yoga and meditation,
Mhm.
even though she's a regular MD, but she also does all the holistic stuff. So I asked her if she would talk to me because I just got this offer for big money, but for a contemplation, it's like a new age Dale Carnegie course.
Mhm.
I took it out of India. So I talked to her, and then I took the course myself. It was an 8-week course, and I asked them to open it up so I could do it like in 8 days, to make a
Yeah,
decision.
a bit like you approached our course as well. Just
Yeah.
fast tracked
Uh,
it.
so I did that, and she gave me some suggestions and stuff. So I went back to the guy and I said, "Okay, I'll do it, but you have to make a few changes." And he sort of said, "Like what?" And I said it much nicer than this. I said, basically everything. I said, the course is great, but America is different than most other countries. If the course is very inexpensive, most countries or people in most countries think that's good. They're getting a good value. In America, they think it's not good because it's too cheap.
Yeah.
You have to raise the price a lot. Number two, Americans have the attention span of a flea. You can't have an 8-week course. The most you could go is like 4 weeks. Then you can have a second course, but you can't do it. And then you have these lenses, special points that he's going over. And I think he had 16 of them throughout the course. Yeah, 2 a week. So I said, Americans, you can't have more than 5. And I compromised with him on 6. I said, because if Americans hear 16, even the number 6, forget it's too much. You can't. So I raised the price and said, now we have to change it. And we have to have a guarantee. And I used the Veblen type concept for the guarantee. And I went through the process of changing everything. He happens to be I think he's in New York now, but he was in California on a book tour. But I just told him, I'm going to add a lot of value. This is what I want for adding the value, but I don't want anything until I add value that you could take to the bank.
Yeah.
Real value. And that's how I always say it. And it's really hard to say no to that. No, I don't want to give you anything just because you made me a lot of money. I mean, people really say that, not often anyhow.
Yeah. Cool. So if somebody is watching this and thinking, is this something that they should do or not do? What would be your advice, and what would be your advice for what type of person or what they need to do to make the most of it if they're going to join it? What is your experience?
First of all, like anything, you get in what you put in, or you get out what you put in. So you have to go into it the right way. And like I've talked to people now that have been in it for months, and I'll say, how they said in 4.3? Oh, I'm up to 1.4. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you just join? No, but I've been busy. Okay. Well, I don't know. It doesn't matter who the person is. If in 3 months you did 4 modules, you're not going to be successful. That's just my way of thinking. You should be, oh man, could I do the next one more today? And I'm looking at my clock and say, can I do 3.2? I just did 3 shoe. It's already 10 o'clock. But that's how you should be. You should want to throw yourself into it. And when I did the thing where I changed where I had my LinkedIn optimized and my CV optimized basically for boards, and it was so successful, I put it right out there right away. Told everybody, hey, if you want to do it, tell me. I'll connect you up with the guy. It costs money, but I won't make any money. I'll just connect you up with the guy because it's real helpful. And I had people respond to that. So that's my nature, is to help. But when I do that, for a certain percentage of the people, you tend to get it back. Like from Michael, for instance. Michael asked me about the CVs and the thing earlier. And then when he was going to leave that company, the STEM reps company, he thought of me.
Yeah.
If you truly feel like you bring value, or you can bring value to your employer or whatever company you're with, or to people in general, this is great for you, because that's what they want. That's what a board member is. And if you could become known as a person like that, that's why I said the thing about Amway before, where you talk about it all the time. If every time you meet, in every situation you're there, you're trying to think of how you could bring value to you and that person, or everybody involved in the situation, it's only going to work a certain small percentage of the time. But if it only works 2-3% of the time, and you do 2-3 times a year, that's
Yeah.
not very much. If you do it 50 times a month, 2-3% is a lot. You're having a lot of things going on, and that's the personality you need. As a matter of fact, a great example of that is Ralph.
Mm.
He's a go-getter, and he's pushing and pushing.
So yeah, so Ralph, maybe it's something in the water in Atlanta, you guys. But so Ralph joined us. He was one of the first people to join the program. He has been an apprentice on, in fact, I was on a board meeting with him today for a European company he's been apprenticing on, and then leveraged that to get a board position in New York on the OTC. And yeah, another great guy. And another one, just thinking of that, is Miranda,
I'm
who.
on board with Miranda in the
Uh,
STEM.
okay, great. So she's gone out, and turns out she has a fantastic ability to go and pitch boards to companies. And I think she probably is responsible for getting more people onto boards in the Veblen program than anyone else. But that's, that creates huge value for the companies. It creates huge value for those Veblen members, and all of them will repay it to her many times over. So yeah, it's
That's the
very
STEM,
noticeable.
because that was the STEM Reps company where I changed it from or asked the stakeholder to change it from an advisory board to a regular board, and to reward us when we hit certain benchmarks with stock and pay. And I asked them all, because became chairman, in the first meeting. It's sort of funny, and I said, are you all willing to work harder for, lack of a better word, $1 million? And Miranda said right away, I knew I liked you.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
She's very outgoing and vivacious. She has a great attitude.
Yeah. So look, so you've touched on the profile, you've touched on the power of the community and that network. It Other sort of comments for people that are sitting on the fence in terms of resources, or in terms of the knowledge that they need, and how easy it is. If they get a board seat, often people are afraid because if they get a board seat and they've never been on a board, they don't know what to do. How have you found, like, the ability to kind of reach out to other people in the community, or to, what in terms of the resources that are available to individuals? What are your comments on that?
I think Veblen itself is a extremely valuable resource to the people. And I could give you a great example with STEM Reps. STEM Reps, like I said, is basically teaching people the high-tech industries, that the schools don't teach, so they can get good jobs or help in their own business, or whatever it is. But he
Mm.
needed more than just that to monetize it. So
Mhm.
I did the same thing I said, you can't do it. It's way too cheap. I mean, he was going to charge $25 a month. I said, you can't do that. We have to guarantee getting him a job. We have to form up. And I went to go, so what would you charge? I said, well, $29.95
Mhm.
to join, and $39.95 if you want to join and get a certification for it. But for that, we guarantee getting them a job. We do the, and I went through all the things, and I said, we could just copy, in a sense, the Veblen model. We have to set up a marketplace for employers. Like Veblen has a marketplace for people that are looking for board members. Very easy to do.
Mm.
But I just did that right away from the get. And what are the resources? Well, in this case, I mean, this is like an advertisement for Veblen. Every board member is from Veblen. 6 of them.
Yeah.
Because Michael set it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
From Veblen. And then I just changed his program. I said, okay, you got to raise the price. You have to help them get a job. You have to help them with investors. I was basically copying the Veblen model that you're using for boards for him for STEM.
Mm.
He said, what are the resources? I said, I can give you the form now. I have to ask Callum first if it's okay to copy it and change it. But I said, all this is available to us. And whenever I have a question, if it's something, quote, above me, I just have to put it on media and posts. And it's nobody will ever describe the Veblen community as shy.
There's some good people in there, some very good people in there. Yeah, I often say to new members, in fact, I did an onboarding call today with a couple of new members, and I said the best way to learn is in public. So if you have a question, yes, you can send me a message directly, but if you post it in the forum, you'll get half a dozen different responses, you'll get different viewpoints, and 9 times out of 10, you'll get a better answer from one of the Veblen members than you'd ever get from me, because we've got such a range of experience and different backgrounds. Yeah, so it's definitely I learn a ton from the questions that get posted.
That's something important for an employer also to learn. A lot of employers or upper management, I should say, they think they can only learn from others that are closer to their equals. And if you want to learn something, I found you have a meeting with the drivers, you have a meeting with the warehouse people, and say, okay, all the hats are off now. What are we doing wrong here? And you'll get way better answers than you will from the supervisor because they're worried about their jobs.
Yes.
Guy in the warehouse or a driver isn't worried that, well, I'm going to say something and they won't have me as a driver because I offended somebody. They don't think like that.
Right. So Keith, look, it's been a few months. You're on 3 boards. You're getting offers on an almost daily basis, certainly every other week every week to go and talk to new boards. What we touched a little bit before this on some of the kind of the wealth creation opportunities that sit behind once you sit on boards, once you get access to the kind of deal making opportunities that come up. What have you got in mind? What's your plan for the next year or two now that you're in this program and in this network?
Since a lot of the boards that I'm going on are new, new companies or reaching a phase, like STEM is 5 years old, but it's just reaching the phase where it's ready to grow. And by helping those companies grow, you'll make money right then. Like I by coincidence, have about 50,000 followers on my social media, and I keep them informed about the journey. And when I tell them, hey, this is like a New Age Dale Carnegie course, they really help with problem solving and innovation. I took the course myself. I really liked it. It's definitely worth it. I think you should give it a shot. I'll get some members for them. You get paid. The same thing with the STEM. Most of my followers are in the medical field. That's pretty techy, as it is. Anyhow, when I tell them that they can learn the next level and get better jobs, I should be able to help the company increase its income and indirectly be paid for it by just doing what I would do naturally by putting out a post. No, I might have to put out and talk to people, but
no, and look, what I'd encourage everyone to do is to go and find your LinkedIn profile, and we'll link it below, and look at some of the posts, because one of the things I think you've done incredibly well, and I encourage other new Vebliners to do this, is you've sort of documented your journey as you've gone through it. And I think because oftentimes people that have never done anything about building their profile are very nervous about, look, I don't want to look at me, I'm the expert, because I'm not the expert. I feel uncomfortable in that sort of role. What you've done is you've taken the approach of, let me be the guide. I'm on this journey. Let me tell you what I'm doing, and these are my goals and objectives. And you clearly state over and over again, my goal and objective is to add value to boards. And I think that was, I believe it was from one of your posts that ultimately led to that S&P 500 approach. Somebody had read that and thought you would be good. So yeah, I recommend everyone goes and connects with Keith and follows you on LinkedIn, because it's fascinating to read as well.
Well, I appreciate that. But it's the truth. If you do that all the time, and that's somewhat your personality, that you want to help people, this is a great way to direct it, where you can help more people than you ever dreamed about. And it's not bad, especially if you're younger, to become wealthy while you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Keith, we could talk for hours. We've already gone over significantly over what we were going to talk, but it's always fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you've shared. If this is what you've achieved in 3 or 4 months, I'm looking forward to working with you closely over the next year or so. I'm sure there'll be many more stories and achievements. And lots of wealth created from the sounds of things. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, if you've enjoyed this podcast, do reach out and follow Keith on LinkedIn, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you in the program as well. Thank you.